She was just 13, clutching her scholarship check with trembling fingers. All she wanted was to make her mother proud, handle her first big deposit like a young adult. But inside the grand marble bank, no one smiled. No one helped. And when the manager saw her skin, the tone of the room changed. What began as a routine transaction spiraled into humiliation. What they never expected, though, was who would walk through those glass doors and what power she carried. It was a bright, chilly Wednesday morning when 13-year-old Kira Daniels stepped into the towering lobby of Ridgewell National Bank. She wore her school uniform, pressed navy blazer, gray pleated skirt, and shining black flats. Her braids were pulled neatly into a low bun, and her backpack hung lightly on one shoulder. She looked like any other honor student. But inside her bag, tucked safely in a plastic folder, was something more. A $7,500 scholarship check awarded for academic excellence. She had earned it, every last cent. Today was special. Her mother had offered to come with her, but Kira had refused gently. "Mom, I got this. I want to do it by myself," she said with quiet pride that morning, sliding the check into her folder like it was gold. Her mother had smiled, kissed her forehead, and gone to work. Kira's heart thumped as she approached the tall counter, where a young white teller in a blue tie looked up slowly. "Yes?" he asked, his tone flat. "Hi, I need to deposit this check," she said, placing the folder gently on the desk. "It's a scholarship. I have my school ID and letter right here." The teller, whose name tag read Chase, blinked at her, then slowly picked up the check. $7,500? He repeated, brows lifting. "How'd you get this?" Kira's smile faltered. "It's an award from the State Science Initiative." Behind him, a tall woman in heels and a tailored crimson blazer stepped forward. Her platinum hair was coiled tightly in a bun, and her lips were set in a cold line. Jill Warren, regional manager. "What's going on?" she asked, eyeing Kira up and down. "She says it's a scholarship check," Chase said, handing it to her. Jill looked it over, then returned her gaze to Kira, her voice turning condescending. "This is a very large amount. We have to verify. You understand?" Kira nodded politely. "Yes, I brought all the documents." Jill didn't look at them. She snapped her fingers at a nearby teller. "Take her to the waiting area. We'll see if this clears." Kira walked to the bench by the window, confused. No one else seemed to be waiting. The woman who had just walked in before her was already smiling at a teller with coffee in her hand. Minutes passed, then more. Kira sat, hands clasped tightly. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from her mom. "Did everything go okay?" She did not reply. Inside the glass office, Jill spoke quietly to another employee. She could see them glancing over. The woman's lips curled in a small smirk. 30 minutes, then 40. When Kira finally stood to ask what was happening, Jill stepped out. "We're still running checks," she said coolly. "You'll have to wait. We can't just accept checks from anyone." The pause, the look, the implication. Kira felt the sting like a slap. "I'd like to speak to someone else," she said, her voice shaky. Smirking, Jill replied, "I am someone else." The next moment, Jill turned to a guard. "Please escort her to the back lobby. This area is for verified clients." Kira stood frozen. The guard approached. Her chest tightened. But just then, the entrance doors swung open, and in walked a tall black woman in a charcoal pantsuit, her heels echoing like thunder. Every head turned. Even Jill's smile faltered. The woman's voice rang out, sharp and direct. "Why is my daughter being treated like a threat?" The bank went silent. Every eye turned as Kira's mother stepped forward, poised, powerful, and visibly furious. She did not raise her voice, but her presence demanded answers. The same manager who had dismissed Kira now fumbled with her words. Behind that sleek red blazer and cold smirk, Jill had no idea who she had just tried to humiliate. But as this mother calmly removed her business card and handed it over, The manager's face turned pale. Everything was about to change. The silence in the bank lobby was thick. You could hear the second hand on the wall clock ticking. The woman in the charcoal pantsuit stepped between Kira and the approaching security guard, her protective stance immediate and unshakable. "I said," she repeated firmly, "why is my daughter being treated like a threat?" The guard halted, confused. Jill Warren straightened her spine, clearing her throat. "Ma'am, this is a private matter between the bank and the minor." The woman arched her eyebrow. "That minor happens to be my daughter, Kira Daniels, and this bank has no right to isolate or intimidate her." "I am the branch manager," Jill replied, regaining a sliver of confidence. "And for security reasons, we are required to verify high-value checks, especially when presented without an adult." The woman smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made grown men uncomfortable in boardrooms. She reached into her leather handbag and pulled out a card. "I am Naomi Daniels, CEO of Daniels Equity Group. I also sit on the advisory board for the National Financial Ethics Council." She handed Jill the card. "And I'm here to observe how your branch treats its customers. You may continue." Chase, the teller, turned pale. Jill's mouth opened slightly. She looked down at the card, then up again. Her voice cracked slightly. I did not realize." "You did not ask. You judged. And you did not just question a check. You questioned my daughter's right to exist in this space." She turned to Kira and gently placed her hand on her shoulder. Kira's chin trembled, but she held her head high. Naomi addressed the entire room now, loud enough for the watching customers, staff, and even the security guard to hear. "My daughter is a published STEM scholar at 13. This check is not only legitimate, it is overdue recognition for her brilliance. And the way she was treated today, made to sit alone while others were served, watched like a criminal, escorted by security, is unacceptable." The whispers began again, only now they were different. Sympathy, surprise, discomfort. "I would like a formal apology for my daughter in writing today, and I will be filing a report with the regulatory board." The entire staff stood motionless. Then a customer took out their phone. Another began recording. Jill's world was unraveling. Her eyes darted between her staff and the door. Naomi leaned in one last time. "You did not just underestimate a child. You underestimated who raised her."
Kira thought being ignored was painful, but being seen only to be mistreated cut deeper. As her mother confronted the cold bank manager, the atmosphere turned thick with judgment, silence, and shame. But the worst blow was yet to come, and it would not strike Kira. No, this time the blow would fall on the very woman who had tried to humiliate her. What no one inside that bank realized was that the truth was already spreading far beyond the marble walls. The silence that followed Naomi Daniels' arrival hung heavy in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm. Jill Warren's expression flickered between indignation and dread. She tried to compose herself, but the phone cameras, the watching eyes, the truth, that undeniable, humiliating truth, made every step feel heavier. I apologize for the misunderstanding," Jill said stiffly. We have protocols." Naomi's voice was smooth and steady, but each word landed like a blade. "No, what you have is a pattern, and my daughter just exposed it." Kira stood tall beside her mother, but her heart was still pounding. Just moments ago, she had been an invisible girl sitting in a corner, treated like a criminal. Now, the very woman who had dismissed her was on the verge of unraveling. "You should know who you are dealing with," Naomi said, handing over her card, "because by tomorrow morning, your branch will." The card practically burned in Jill's hand. Kira watched as her mother's presence transformed the room, not just because of her title, but because of how calm and powerful she remained under pressure. There was no yelling, no threats, just the quiet authority of someone who had fought too hard to be underestimated. Eric, the assistant manager, returned with the deposit receipt. "It's done," he said softly. "Miss Daniels, your funds are secure."
Kira nodded, but her hands were still shaking. The crowd inside the bank was no longer whispering. They were watching, holding their breath. Someone whispered, "That's the CEO of Daniels Equity Group." Another murmured, "She's the one who rebuilt 3 community schools." Jill's fingers trembled now as she fumbled with her tablet, pretending to type. Naomi stepped closer, her voice still level. "You knew she was a child. You saw her alone. And instead of protecting her, you made her feel like a threat." She opened her mouth to protest, but the automatic doors slid open again. A young black journalist rushed in, holding a microphone and a small camera crew at her back. "Excuse me, Ms. Daniels, would you be willing to comment?" Jill's face went ghostly white. You called the media?" Naomi didn't flinch. "No, but apparently justice travels faster than excuses." The journalist continued, "Your daughter's story is trending on social media. A bystander video has over 300,000 views. People are asking why a young black girl was singled out while white clients were served without question." Jill took a step back, her eyes wide. I didn't mean to get caught?" Naomi asked gently. The guard who had been ordered to escort Kira earlier shifted awkwardly. For the first time, he looked unsure, almost ashamed. Naomi looked at her daughter. "Kira," she said softly, "is there anything you would like to say?" Kira's throat tightened. She took one small step forward and looked at the crowd. Her voice was quiet, but clear. "I worked hard for that check. I was scared to speak up because I thought no one would believe me, but I deserve to be here. I deserve to be respected." The silence that followed was not uncomfortable, it was powerful. And then a woman from the crowd clapped once, then another. Soon, the quiet lobby was filled with the sound of applause. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply, deeply human. But the moment shattered when Naomi's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression sharpened. Then she turned the screen to Jill, who looked down and read the text out loud. "CEO Naomi Daniels, please advise when available for immediate legal review. Ridgewell Bank Executive Council requesting urgent meeting. Confirm receipt." Jill's legs nearly gave out. But Naomi's voice was calm. "Looks like corporate is watching." The moment the applause faded, the fallout began. Cameras rolled, phones buzzed, and a powerful institution scrambled to contain a disaster caused by one manager's arrogance. But for Kira, this was never about revenge. It was about being seen, heard, and valued. As the truth spread beyond the bank's marble walls, something remarkable happened. Not only did justice come knocking, but a young black girl walked away stronger, prouder, and more unshakable than ever before. Within hours, the story swept across every major platform. Bank manager humiliates 13-year-old scholarship winner, gets called out by her CEO mother. From silence to spotlight, Kira Daniels and the day that changed Ridgewell National. #StandWithKira was trending by sunset. Inside her firm's downtown conference room, Naomi Daniels sat at the head of a glass table, calm but composed. Opposite her were 2 senior executives from Ridgewell Bank's corporate office, sent in person after the online footage went viral. "We are deeply sorry," one executive said, trying to maintain his polished tone. "What occurred was unacceptable. Our internal review has already begun." Naomi nodded once. "Good, but public trust is not restored by quiet internal memos." They shifted nervously. "Ms. Daniels, we are prepared to place Ms. Warren, the branch manager, on immediate leave pending termination proceedings. We also want to extend a public apology to your daughter, along with the donation to her Academy Scholarship Fund, should you approve the partnership." Naomi's gaze did not waver. "This is not just about my daughter. It is about every young person who walks into a bank, a school, a courtroom and is judged before they speak. I want systemic reform. Diversity training is not enough. I want investment in community outreach, a full audit of branch-level discrimination complaints, and a seat on your ethics advisory board, not just for me, but for people like Kira. The room went silent. Then the lead executive cleared his throat. We agree to those terms. Naomi gave a firm nod. Then you may draft your apology. That evening, the statement appeared on every social feed and news outlet. Ridgewell National deeply regrets the incident at our Oakside branch involving Miss Kira Daniels. We recognize the pain our actions caused and affirm our commitment to rebuilding trust. We thank CEO Naomi Daniels for her leadership and advocacy. Change begins now. At home, Kira sat on her bedroom floor, still in her school uniform, holding her scholarship certificate. Her phone was buzzing nonstop. Messages of support, praise, even classmates saying, "You're a hero." She turned to her mom, sitting beside her on the carpet. "Was today too much?" Kira asked quietly. Naomi looked at her daughter, this time not as a CEO, not as a woman called to speak on national platforms, but as a mother. "No. Today was the beginning. You changed more than just a policy, Kira. You showed the world what dignity looks like in the face of injustice." Kira looked down at her certificate, then up again. "I was so scared." "I know. But you stood your ground, and that is how real change begins." The next morning, Kira walked back into Ridgewell National, not to deposit a check, but to stand at a podium beside her mother. The branch had been transformed. The cold indifference was gone. In its place, reporters, signs of support, and a banner that read, "Equity begins here." Kira took a deep breath and looked at the crowd. "I came here to deposit a check, but I ended up depositing something bigger, my story. I hope every kid who sees this knows that being young, or quiet, or different doesn't mean you do not belong." Thunderous applause followed. Naomi stepped beside her and placed a proud hand on her daughter's shoulder. "And if they forget," she added softly, "remind them loudly."